So by now, everyone has already seen the triple P that I did on Bethany Mandel and that awfully interesting, embarrassing moment she had when she was on the Rising show and she was talking to the woman Briahna Joy Gray, who you see right here on the left. Well, surprise, surprise, they are now trying to throw interference for Bethany Mandel and trying to make it seem like she was so blindsided by everything that happened on that show. And listen, she just didn't know what she was talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and read this article. Then I'm going to go into the tweets that Bethany put out there. And then I'm going to pull something else up that I didn't even expect to see. But it just shows you that maybe this woman probably, hopefully messed up her own bag. So we're going to get started with this article right here. And the title reads, Conservative Mom Who Struggled to, to Define Woke. Says interviewer, that would be Briahna, demeaned parents on hot mic. I was rattled. So now they're trying to throw Bethany Mandel into the victim category when she's far from that. The conservative author who went viral this week for her halting response on defining woke told Fox News Digital her questioner made a disparaging remark about parents on a hot mic before the interview began, effectively throwing her off her game. Okay. Mind you, this woman wrote a book where she did, I guess, a chapter about what woke is, and she couldn't even define her own bastardized version of that. In an appearance Tuesday on the Hill's web series Rising to promote her new book Stolen Youth, Bethany Mandel had difficulty responding to a question from co-host Briahna Joy Gray in a clip that racked up millions of views online and jubilant commentary from media progressives. Would you mind defining woke? Gray asked. It's come up a couple of times. I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page. Bethany then responds with, so, I mean, woke is sort of the idea that now, of course, y'all have already seen the video, so it plays off better when she says it versus when I read it. This is going to be one of those moments that goes viral, Mandel said, as she paused and looked for the right words, and still didn't find them. I mean, woke is something that's very hard to define, we spent an entire chapter defining it, but if you spent an entire chapter defining it in your book, why couldn't you just refer to your book? Even though what I'm sure that what she put in her book was a bunch of BS. See, this moment right here is probably going to hurt her book sales, because whatever she put in that book is most likely not even true. And the fact that she couldn't even reference her book when asked that question means that she lied. Whatever she put in her book as it pertains to the definition of the word woke most likely was a fallacy. She goes on to say, it's sort of the understanding that we need to totally reimagine and redo society in order to create hierarchies of oppression. Sorry, it's hard to explain in a 15-second soundbite, she said. Addressing the clip that happened in the middle of her 12-minute interview on Wednesday, Mandel called it a viral brain fart and blamed it in part on what she described as Gray's hot mic remarks demeaning parents before the interview. She just had to find a way to point the finger of blame back at this black woman for questioning her asking her to define what woke meant. Asked to elaborate on her accusation, Mandel told Fox News Digital that she didn't have a recording, but that Gray, right after Mandel logged on for the remote interview, said something along the lines of, I effing hate parents, and thought they were narcissists who just wanted small versions of themselves. Mandel, who just had her sixth child, and she took it as a direct shot and almost couldn't believe what she heard. She added Gray's co-host Robbie Soave, the Libertarian senior editor of Reason, replied to Gray, there are some good ones and some bad ones to Gray, and then moved on before starting the interview. Gray is a left-wing former national press secretary for Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign who has been critical of corporate media and mainstream Democrats. She recalled feeling this has a real possibility of getting really nasty and really personal, which has happened to me a lot over the course of my career. And so I logged on thinking, this woman is about to come at me very personally, and I have to be very careful because one day my kids are going to see this, and I don't want them to be hurt by whatever she says and whatever I say she said. And so I have to be very careful. And so I was already very anxious when the call started. And you can tell, my goodness, if you watch the whole video, I am anxious from the get-go. She's trying to remove herself from the accountability of her not being able to define that word. She's trying to throw it all back onto this woman on the left. Gray and Sawab didn't respond to requests for comment. Mandel noted as she froze up over the question that it was going to go viral. Indeed, a host of progressive sites and writers picked up the remarks, including the Daily Beast, the Washington Post, Philip Bump, HuffPost, and the New York Daily News. She was also mocked on Twitter by liberal media figures like NBC's Ben Collins and 1619 Project founder Nicole Hannah-Jones. Liberals also derided Mandel's explanation on Wednesday. Former Andrew Cuomo aide Lindsey Boylan tweeted that I've only been treated with respect as a mother by Briahna. Lindsey says, I find it problematic that Bethany feels that she is owed the space for her own backstory on this interview, and her entire grift is about denying this country in its true backstory. And for what it's worth, I've only been treated with respect as a mother by Briahna. Far left writer, I'm not going to even read that comment. That's coming from Jamami Hill. I'm not reading that. The Daily Show correspondent Roy Wood Jr. also made light of the clip in a sketch from the show's Twitter account. In the video, he pretended to be disarming a bomb, where the password to disarm it was the definition of the word woke, and Mandel couldn't help him. Mandel acknowledged that she was rattled by what she said Gray remarked before the interview. It was very deer in the headlights, Mandel said. I could see the next 24 hours, and I saw it at that moment, and I was right. Like, she was shit talking on camera a few seconds before the hot mic, and I was rattled. I compared it to someone shining a light in your eyes right before you're about to shoot a free throw, and you just choke, and that's exactly what I did. She called the moment humanizing, adding she hopes the dust up doesn't distract from the book's success, noting it's reached number 20 on the Amazon's nonfiction bestseller list. They're probably going to buy the book now, if they do buy it, to see what her definition of woke is and see if it matches up with whatever she said on this interview. I hope having 6 kids makes me realize there are worse things in the world, and I feel like I let my co-author down because this is what people are talking about, and I don't want to be that to be the conversation, because our book today, Amazon just released that we're in the top 20. What I don't like what she's doing is that she's incorporating and bringing her kids into this when she shouldn't have even done that. Why would you use them as a shield? No, you take this one on the chin. You messed yourself up. Stolen Youth, How Radicals Are Erasing Innocence and Indoctrinating a Generation was written by Mandel and New York Post columnist Carol Markowitz. It provides what is called an urgent deep dive into issues surrounding the current quote-unquote woke indoctrination happening in politics, education, medicine, mental health, entertainment, and culture, and how parents can quote-unquote go on the offense to protect our kids. She says she should have been able to articulate a better answer to Gray's question. In that moment, I was human and I screwed up, she said, but I need to explain that, and I think people are owed that explanation if I'm going to be taken seriously as someone who has written a best-selling book on the subject, which I have. Mandel said so-called wokeness is reimagining the world for children in a way that puts a sharp focus on equity and race while also redefining gender. There's also a lot of academic definitions of woke that are constantly changing, and I don't think that they are super pertinent to our audience. Now, that's very interesting because we all know where the word woke comes from. So listen to what she said. There's a lot of academic definitions of woke that are constantly changing, and they spearheaded that change. She goes on to say, I think the reality and what's important is that this is a radical reorganization of our society that is detrimental and disorienting for our children. You know it when you see it, she added. You know when we see young men competing in women's swimming competition that it is wokeness personified. So that is the entire article right there from, this actually came from Fox News, by the way. That article that I just read. Now, you heard everything that I just read right there. So what I'm about to do now is pull up her tweets in which she responded to the video. So this is right here. I'm not going to play the video. I've already seen it. And it says, so everybody's seen my viral brain fart from rising this morning. I can see why it went viral. Of course, well, you called it. You said it's going to go viral, and it did. And look at this, 10.1 million views. Mind you, when I did the Triple P, it was last seen at 2.5 million views. So as you can see, it's gone even more viral. She's trying to explain away what we've already obviously seen. But let's see what else she's talking about. She goes on to say a bit of backstory just before we went on the air. Basically, I don't have to read it. This is just the tweets right here of what I read in the article. I didn't even realize they was going to put the whole thing in here. But this part right here, she says, as for wokeness, here's an actual definition. And this is what she says. A radical belief system suggesting that our institutions are built around discrimination and claiming that all disparity is a result of that discrimination. It seeks a radical redefinition of society in which equality of group result is the endpoint enforced by an angry mob. That's the definition that she has. But we know what the actual definition is, and it is not that. That is their definition of it. But I find it very interesting how when she was talking about, she felt like she got blindsided because of the hot mic take that Briahna Joy Gray did to her allegedly. But I came across something else even more interesting since this has blown up. And that's this article right here off of slate.com. As you can see, it was posted March 16, 2023. And it says, I asked the woman who couldn't define woke the same question last year. Now, this is someone who's interviewing her who is not Briahna Joy Gray. This is somebody else asking her the same question. Now, I'm going to go through this because I've already gotten a little sneak peek of what she said. And I want y'all to peep how much different her definition is then compared to now. It says, while many reveled in the moment, just others suggested that the reaction was kind of gross for what was just a stumble on television. As it happens, I spoke to Mandel a few months ago for another story I was reporting, and she hesitated then too. So this person who is interviewing her is named Amon Ismail. I'm guessing that's how you pronounce her name. She says, what do you mean by wokeness? Which is the same question that Briahna Joy Gray asked her. Bethany said to her, so in terms of children, it's the idea of turning them. I think my best example is the board book Anti-Racist Baby. And it is, hold on, I have it. I have the text somewhere. The idea that you cannot be neutral, that this is a fundamental reshaping of our society in the lens of anti-racism, in the lens of sexuality. That is not what we've traditionally thought. It's the idea that we're trying to turn our kids into modern warriors in these political battles about CRT and about sexuality and climate change and all of these things. While some of the things that she said here is in that other one, there's a lot that is mixed up, that is not there in the one she gave recently. So it's like you're not really giving the same definition. But again, making stuff up as you go along is typical of someone like her. He goes on to say, Mandel said on Rising that she and her co-author spent an entire chapter of their book defining the term woke, and based on the answer she gave me and the show, I might suggest that that's part of the problem. I reached Mandel again on Wednesday after she tweeted the rough interview herself. I had an idiotic flub. It was just a stupid moment. She said, you know how you see something happening from outside of your body? Like, this is, why am I doing this? This is terrible. It was that, but on camera. She added, my husband made this comparison. You know that gif of the monkey sticking his finger up its butt and smelling it? Every day there's that person on the internet, and today it's me. So if you look at the response she gave last year, it's the same type of thing that she got with Briahna Joy Gray when she was asked the same question. She again stumbled over it and didn't know how to define it. But remember, this woman wrote a whole chapter about wokeness, and she can't define the definition that she gave in her book, nor does she want to give the actual definition of what woke actually means. If, like I said, if anybody buys her book, the only reason they purchased it is because they want to see what kind of definition she gives in the book, to see if it leans onto that. My thing is this: if you have the definition offhand or in your book, it shouldn't be difficult for you to be able to respond to the question when you're asked to define what it is. Unless, which what she did is, and many others of her ilk, is give it its own definition that does not exist. But the fact that she's up there or sitting up there trying to turn it into, oh, it's Briahna's fault, she railroaded me, she blindsided me. No, you weren't prepared. See, she's so used to always probably going on shows where no one's going to ask her that question. Well, now that she's messed up the way that she's did, she better be prepared to always get asked that question. And the fact that she was asked this question before a couple days ago or a few days ago and did the same exact thing, this woman is a fraud. But then again, most of those grifters are. That's all they tend to do, is be fraudulent. That's what she is. But as long as she keeps saying the right things, people are going to continue to eat it up, and they're just as dumb as she is.